Hi everyone, I'm Sian and I'm here to talk about Chapter 5, the 5th song from Gabriel's album. So in this chapter, we saw the first concert from the tour that we're at. They have been on tour for about a week, so they've done a couple of concerts before this one. I just thought this one was interesting because it shows how fame affects different people differently and how they're adjusting to life on the road in the tour, and how some of them aren't doing as good a job at it as others. I don't know. So the chapter starts with the guys coming back from doing an interview, and we get to see a little conversation with Hayden, and oh my God, I love Hayden so much. And it's funny that I never thought that I would love him in the beginning because I didn't know him that well, but the more time I've gotten to spend with him, the more I love him. That's funny because I'm recording this and I'm looking at my camera and I can see behind my camera, my computer has a picture of Hayden on my Hayden as the desktop background. So it's pretty funny because that's what I'm seeing behind the camera right now. Anyway, my love of Hayden. Something I did want to talk about was the intrusive thoughts that Gabriel gets. So that's the name for thoughts that you have, and it's described, he says in it, like it's like when you're walking across a bridge and you're worried that you'll climb over and fall off, but that you don't want to do it. So what's funny is I'm working from the, like when I'm going through this, I'm going from the manuscript that my proofreader proofed, and he's got his comments on it, and his comment for that, he highlighted that he was like, sorry, what now? In my experience, people who have never had intrusive thoughts find them very shocking. People who have had intrusive thoughts are like, oh my God, that's normal. And that was my reaction when I first found out about them. What's funny is when I first told my parents about intrusive thoughts, my dad was like, oh yeah, I get those. Like, you know, sometimes I'll have a thought or whatever. And when he said what this thought was, my mum was like, what? No. So she had never had it. And my brother never had intrusive thoughts either. So it's just interesting how different people have different experiences. But yes, that's what it's called when you have a thought that's kind of like he's standing there in front of the crowd and he's thinking, oh my God, what if I say something stupid? He doesn't want to say something stupid. And he's probably not going to say something stupid, but the thought pops into his head. And I always got that as like, even from as a kid, like walking across a bridge, that's the example I gave to Gabriel. You have that thought like, oh, what if I climb over this railing and then fall off this bridge? You don't want to do it, but it's just a thought that comes into your brain and you get that fear that you might do it, even though you know you don't want to do it. Intrusive thoughts are weird. But I did want to give that to Gabriel because I kind of felt like if I was standing in front of 40,000 people, I'd be worried that I might say something dumb or they might hear it. And it'd be very hard to get over that. But then I feel like Gabriel's love of music, and once he is performing, that sort of all goes away for him because music's a bit of his safe space. So once he's performing and he's getting in the groove, all of his fears fly out of his head because he's like so in love with the music and so in love with performing that all passes. Oh my word. The front row crowd at concerts. So I remember getting a bad review of the album, and part of her complaint, because I was back in the day, I thought that messaging people who wrote 1-star reviews to talk to them was a good idea. And to my credit, one of my favorite readers was originally a 1-star review of the album. So I wouldn't do it now, but I did it back then. But I messaged this person who left a 1-star review of the album, mostly because I was concerned because they said they didn't like the sexism in the book. And I was like, well, I know Sebastian is sexist, he's a douchebag, and the way that the guys behave the first time they meet Ariana, yep, check. But it didn't seem that that was what they were talking about. And I was really confused more than anything because I tried really hard not to write a book with terrible sexist stereotypes. So So I messaged them, and the issue they had were with, and you don't see it in Gabriel's album, but were with the comments that were made toward Heather and Ariana at the beginning of this chapter when they're in the pit. And I was like, okay, cool. But once I knew what it was, I was like, that's fine. I would never change that, because that's based on some hardcore fans of people tend to be not the nicest to anybody who may have something that they wish they had. So in this case, it's the front row crowd and Ariana and Heather between the barrier and the stage. And once I got that feedback, that was one of the things I was like, I wouldn't change that, because it was very true to life, to the sort of things that could, not every one of the fans said the horrible stuff, but absolutely some fans would say that. I'm not saying it's right, and it's gross and it's disgusting and it makes me ugh every time. But facts. I'm thinking, like, every person watching this who has been heavily involved in a fandom, particularly for like a band, surely knows what I'm talking about right now. You either know those people or you've been those people. Or you weren't as heavily involved in the band as you thought you were. But either way, that's what the front row people are like. And then, of course, the sort of fight breaks out amongst the front row people. And then once those troublemakers are gone, it all comes down. But yeah, oh my goodness, the front row at some concerts is truly terrifying. So when I was younger, I would definitely make my way to the front row of concerts and do my best to stay at the barrier and get as close as I could. But I'm too old for that now. Just give me a seat, a numbered seat to sit in, enjoy the vibe with none of the stress and without painful feet, because I can see it. Heaven forbid some of these videos find their way across the internet to places I don't want them to be seen. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Sebastian's obsession with Guns N' Roses. So I gave him this when my brother was alive. But yeah, my brother's favorite band was Guns N' Roses, like hands down. And I gave Sebastian an obsession with Guns N' Roses because Slash is just an epic guitarist, and absolutely Sebastian would be obsessed with Guns N' Roses. Playing some of those solos just would be amazing for a guitarist. So yeah, I always have him trying to get the guys to play Guns N' Roses. And I like throwing in here that, like, was it in this? Oh, it wasn't in this. It was in the Stalker. In the Stalker, Sebastian is trying to get them to play Patience, maybe? Anyway, Hayden says, you know, Gabriel doesn't like singing Axel's because it hurts his voice. In that, I think Sebastian's response to that was, well, I'll sing it if I have to. Like, he just really wants to play it, which I just love. I love that. And then I also really loved Hayden teasing Sebastian just gives me life. Where he's like, that, like, even, I think it's Gabriel who says, like, dude, you're not Slash. But then when Hayden's like, look, it's not that I don't think you're as good as Slash. It's just that I don't think Slash would screw up the outro. I just like the teasing, the back and forth between them. It's cute. Oh, the hot cross buns joke, it makes me laugh every time. I know it's a dumb joke, and I don't care. It makes me laugh every time because Ariana's been checking out his ass and he's teasing her, saying that she's enjoying the view, and then she just makes the joke about Easter and hot cross buns. I don't care. It's a lame joke. It makes me laugh every time I read it. So into a slightly more serious topic, straight from the joke, the bad joke. I wanted to discuss the interaction that Gabriel has with the fans. Not the interaction. He meets some fans backstage. So when he first... So I'm trying to think about how to word this right. I want to make sure that I say the right thing. Actually, I am going to put a trigger warning on this, and I will flash up the timestamp to skip forward to, because I realize I'm going to talk about a sensitive topic. So what happens here is, and there's no way of getting around it, it is actually a sexual assault, because the fan, and this happens, and I think it gets blown off a lot, but the fan putting her hand on his ass and holding it there while they're talking, like, you can see how uncomfortable Gabriel is, but he's also kind of scarily used to it and just sucks it up. I don't think that we give enough importance to unwanted touching being a form of sexual assault. It's not okay. And I feel like with celebrities, people feel entitled to them, like they're owed something from them. And I guess when you fantasize about these people all the time and then you meet them, some people feel like it's appropriate to grope them. Not okay. And I hope that came across in Gabriel's book. I think it came across more in Gabriel's book than Ariana's. In Ariana's, she's definitely can see that he is very uncomfortable, but I feel like a discussion should have happened between them about that specifically. But Gabriel also is so kind of used to it that, like, it doesn't register for him, because it's not like the first time it's happened, which is really sad. But he's distracted, obviously, by what happens with Sebastian. But I did want to touch on that, yeah, unwanted touching is assault, and it's really gross, and it doesn't make it okay just because it's a woman doing it to a man. And on that note, let's continue with the serious-ish topics by discussing the next group of fans that Gabriel interacts with, and that is John. I don't know where I got the name John. John, Melissa, Kit, and Alex. So Kit is non-binary. Kit is actually named after my friend Kit, who is non-binary. And when I was writing this, I sent them screenshots of this interaction, and I said, like, just so you know, I use they, them pronouns for Kit, and does this come across okay? And they said they were fine with that. That was okay. Actually, I said, I just wanted to make sure you're okay with this. And Kit was like, you based a whole character off me. You didn't ask if that was okay. And I said, well, this was because this is a different issue. And the other one was like a real, like it was a whole character. But it was pretty funny. But something that they then asked, so because I said I want to, you know, normalize using they, them pronouns. So Gabriel uses the correct pronouns for Kit. But I did think it could be confusing to readers. And I said, should I have Gabriel misgender Kit and then Kit correct them and Gabriel behave in the way that one should behave when one gets corrected? Which is just to say, sorry about that, and use the correct pronouns from then. But Kit made a good point. Kit said, if you have Gabriel misgender them, which gender are you going to pick? And I was like, nope, not going to do that. So we came to the conclusion that the better course of action would be to just normalize using they, them pronouns where it is like correct to do so. And in this case, I don't think I've had anybody mention this scene as being confusing to them. I do understand that when I read it, I know when they say that when Gabriel says they, them, a couple of times it could read as though he's talking to the group, but he's talking specifically to Kit. But I think it's important to do these things like normalize non-binary characters and different pronouns for people, which was why I chose to do that. Also, I really wanted to put Kit in there. So there you go. I only have a couple more points to talk about before I'll get onto the questions from this chapter. Sebastian's personal rule. So it's funny because, again, I'm working from the manuscript that my proofreader proofread. So that 5 times fast. Proofreader. Anyway, the comment that he made on that, where he said, I think about Sebastian's personal rule and I'm disgusted, was, I know what that is now. And that was because I think it was in Baby. So I don't think he knew. Oh no, I don't think it was mentioned before that. So yeah, obviously, because he's proofread all my books, he knew that from the Baby that Sebastian's personal rule is that he doesn't sleep with women more than once. One time specifically. Not one occasion, multiple times. One time specifically. That's it. One and done. Gabriel obviously has more respect for women. I do feel, and I've said this before, that Sebastian's friends should have not enabled him to be a douchebag to women. Because I feel like they probably should have. No, they're not responsible for him. But I do think that they let a lot of things slide. I feel like over time, they kind of just stopped trying because it was too hard to have those conversations. And it was just Sebastian being Sebastian. And it had to be Lita who finally stopped him. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the discussion with Hayden in the car. Because in Ariana's version of the book, she kind of like just checks out. She's tired. And this conversation kind of takes place but isn't in her version. And I really like that about doing the companions, seeing the different things that different people pay attention to and what they don't pay attention to. Things that might get missed in one version get added in the other, and vice versa, because it's what people are paying attention to in that moment. I also really like them joking about kicking Sebastian out of the band and getting Slash instead, which I thought was really cute and funny. I just think Hayden's really cute and funny. Yeah, I'm looking at my background again. I'm looking at my background again. He's very pretty. That's that on that. I've got the cover for Hayden's Stalker. My proofreader is also my cover designer. He made it for me because the covers for the Stalker and Hayden's Stalker tie together. So when we were making the cover for the Stalker, we also had to pick the photo that we'd use for the cover of Hayden's Stalker. So the model that is in one of the pictures on the cover of the Stalker is the same model that will be on the cover of Hayden's Stalker, and my cover designer made that cover for me and sent it to me. So now I'm just like sitting on it for a year before I can do the cover reveal for it next year, because it doesn't come out until October 23rd, 2022. But he helpfully sent me a version of it when I'd shown him that I had set it as my background. He helpfully sent me a version of it with none of the text and everything, so that if anyone saw my phone, they wouldn't be spoiled by it. and it's also the background of my PC, my computer, which is what I'm on at the moment. So moving on to questions. I've got a few this week just from awesome people who really love me and think I'm the best. And I may or may not have named characters after them, because the only people watching this are the people that have characters named after them. So the first question is from Ali. And she wanted to know, how did you decide to divide the book into songs instead of just writing the story and split it by page numbers or word count? So, this is a really good question. And I'm just going to have a think about this for a second. How did I decide to do that? Because, okay, all right, I remember now. So what happened was, obviously was inspired by Gives You Hell, and the other thing was Songs About Jane by Maroon 5. And at the time, I would joke, like, whoever Jane was, she really did a number on someone. So I liked this idea of, I don't think there's a way to get around this without giving spoilers. So I guess I'm going to spoiler alert this and give you a timestamp to skip forward to. Cool. So I really liked the idea of the everyday girl that dated the rock star, but then she left him. And she dumped him. Why did she dump him? For what reason would she leave this guy? And he had to be amazing as well to make you go, what? And he then writes an entire album of songs about their relationship. And every song would tell a specific part of their relationship. So in case you haven't noticed, every chapter is the song on the album that matches that instance. So these events that take place all had a song written about them. And then Gabriel turned that into Heart Wide Open. So that was how the idea came of it being the first song, the second song, the third song. I also kind of decided then to do something different in every book. So the wedding, I always knew would be months, because it's, you know, the lead up to their wedding and the 12 months in the lead up to their wedding. So even though there's chapters in that one, it's split into months, where it's got June and it's a news article, and then there's July. I think there's 1 month that's got 3 chapters and another month that's got 1 chapter. Might be Harris's. I think Heather's was a lot more balanced. I think nearly every month had 2 chapters for Heather, but Harrison actually had 1 month that only had 1 chapter, other than May. Both of them only have 1 chapter in May. The baby, because Leda is a programmer, that is split into levels, not chapters. And the stalker has stalker letters between every chapter, but is still in chapters. I wanted to do something different in every book that was specific to that book, but still within the same kind of vibe, so they all feel like they fit together. And I don't know if I'll ever do that for another series. Cruise control is very special to me. The next question is from Dana. How did you choose the name for the bands you use as Cruise Control's supporting act? Basically, I just tried to find something cool that wasn't already a band, hadn't been used. And yeah, just had a vibe that I liked. And yes, I went with Starlight Galaxy for this one. The other one is Evening Star. The next question is also from Dana and is related to that, and that is there any hope for them getting a series in the future? Evening Star are getting a standalone, probably, book titled 7 Weeks, based on the song 7 Weeks by Gym Class Heroes. And it's going to be dirty. The whole kind of premise of it is that their heroine goes on tour with Evening Star. So Heather has mentioned, when Heather mentions, I think it's to Leda, that they know people who have gone off the rails since getting famous. It's actually Evening Star that she's talking about in that book. The heroine goes on tour with Evening Star, and it's about how you can be sucked into that world and become somebody very different to who you are as a person. So she'll start out like this really nice person, but then by the end of the 7 weeks, she's morphed into somebody sort of demanding with the access to the wealth, and that how it can change you even just being within that world. So that'll be an interesting book, but that's probably going to be 2023 maybe that I will write that one, because before that I've got April Conway is getting a trilogy, as well as the Wicked Stallion trilogy, which is a reverse harem. I guess we'll talk about that some other time. Another question from Dana is, you have a good understanding of what happens behind the scenes of the concert. How did you get the information? What resources do you use? Initially, when I wrote the album, I just used my own personal experience with concerts, but I had not had experience with big arena tours, and that showed. I got a couple of bad reviews that mentioned like, oh, this person doesn't know anything about these big arena tours. And then the wonderful Beata found me and gave me help. She has had experience with arena tours and is able to make it a bit more realistic, which was very nice. Good, because I don't want to not have things be realistic. But the resources that I use, Google, like there's so much stuff online. When I was writing Harrison's wedding, I watched so many videos from luthiers and from, you know, guitar factory tours and stuff like that, so that I could make it realistic. And that idea for Harrison's guitar actually came from my proofreader, who is a musician and was in a band. So he also gives me so much help and information that I could never be more grateful for. But all in all, I just try as much as I can to get the information right, because I don't want to be portraying things badly. There's nothing worse than picking up a book and reading it and reading something that you know a lot about and is written terribly. Like, you go, that's so unrealistic. That's not how that happens. Like, and the final question is, you know the answer to this, Dana. Do you like to weave friends and family into your books as characters? If so, who is your favourite cameo? You may not know the answer to that second question, though. And I know you know this because you'll have noticed Kit and Melissa's names and Alex's names in this chapter, which is probably what made you think to ask this question. I do indeed like to weave friends and family into my books as characters. My favourite cameo. Oh, God, I've put so many people into these. I don't know who I have to pick. So I'm going cameo. Oh, Jesus. That's so tough, because I don't think you understand just how many people I've put in my books. Favorite. Absolute favorite. Oh, I don't think I can pick one. God damn, that's a hard question. Because you say cameo, I'm like, is that like Kid, where it's just there, you're just there? But like, if I had to pick a fave, it would obviously be Callum Archer, I think, because he was so helpful to Heather and such a good character, and it's his full name, so maybe I will pick Callum. But one that I really like, it's in Sebastian's Baby. I'm going to say it anyway. Julia is one of my favourite readers, and she was a cameo in Harrison's Wedding. And then in Sebastian's Baby, she's kind of becoming a bigger character, and I realised that she's going to basically be April Conway's bestie in her trilogy. So I think I really like her as a character as well. So I think if I had to pick one, I might pick Julia. It'd be a toss-up between Julia or Callum. Only because I know that Julia's going to become a bigger character. But I like that she started as just a random, because I like to put my readers' names in my books as well. The ones that, I don't know, just are always around. And I thought that was cool. The first one I named after a reader was Maddie, because she'd already been named Maddie, but it was just spelled differently. It was Maddie, and then because of Maddie, it got changed to Maddy. So that was the first character that I named after a reader. But I think, yes, if I was going to pick a fave, it would be Julia or Callum. Fave woman, Julia. Fave man, Callum. There we go. And that is it for the discussion of Chapter 5, The Fifth Song. I didn't have a lot to say this week, but it's a very short chapter, so there's not a lot to say about it. The next chapter is obviously the 6th song, and oh wow, that's a chapter. That is a chapter. There's a lot to delve into with the 6th song. It's a long chapter and it has things happen. That's always been a really pretty crucial chapter in both the album and Gabriel's album. So I'm very much looking forward to you guys hearing the reading of that and also then discussing it. But in the meantime, if you could please like this video, please subscribe, please tell your friends, and come along with me as we continue reading Gabriel's album. I will be back on Thursday with Chapter 6, the 6th song. Okay, bye!